of Americans for the Arts, Ayanna Hudson.
Remember who you are. You are not the pain you carry. You are not the night. Remember who you are.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. As we begin our final day together, I want to take a moment to ground us in what this morning represents. Today, we'll begin by hearing report outs from the incubators, an opportunity to surface the ideas, the tensions, and the possibilities that emerge from your work together, and to share that learning across the full AFTACON community. And this moment really is the culmination of something that has been at the heart of this year's experience, the pathways. When we started shaping AFTACON 2026, we knew we wanted to create something deeper than a traditional conference experience. We wanted to create space, not just for inspiration, but for alignment. Not just for networking, but for focused organizing. Not just for conversation, but for sustained collaboration around the future of arts and culture. This is why we built the Pathway model. Across the past few days, many of you have spent concentrated time inside the Pathways, centered on some of the most urgent and transformative questions facing our field, from arts education to nonprofit success, to empowering rural communities, disaster readiness, civic infrastructure, advocacy, technology, and beyond. The pathways were designed intentionally to bring together people working across disciplines, sectors, and lived experiences so that we could move beyond siloed conversations and towards shared learning and collective action. And then came the incubators. The incubators were never intended to be passive sessions or one-time conversations. They were really designed as working spaces, spaces for experimentation, spaces to really challenge assumptions, surface emerging ideas, identify barriers, and begin laying groundwork for what comes next. Because shaping the future of arts and culture requires more than good ideas. It requires infrastructure for collaboration. It requires trust, and it requires ongoing participation. And it requires people who are willing to stay in relationship with one another long after the conference ends. That is the real purpose of this work. Not simply to gather here for a few days, but to build momentum that continues outward into communities all across the country. And that continuation matters deeply to us. And that's why we've developed a 1-3-6 model for continued engagement. In the first month post-convention, you were all invited to join dedicated email networks devoted to continuing the conversation and developing stronger connections. 3 months from now, we'll convene webinars designed to deepen the work, share emerging practices, and continue cross-sector learning. And at 6 months, we'll publish reports and synthesize learnings from this process so that the ideas developed here can inform the broader field and contribute to long-term movement building across arts and culture. So this is not the conclusion of the incubators. In fact, it is the beginning of a longer arc of collaboration. But before we move into today's presentations, I want to acknowledge the incredible Pathway Committee members who have worked so hard for the last 6 months, curating the content, not only for the incubators, but for the incredible breakout sessions that you experienced on Wednesday. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause to the end. The Creative Work Agency and Technology Committee, Jason Nazum, Arts Consulting Group, Nahal Jalali Farahani, Monitor Institute by Deloitte, Theo Edmonds, Creativity America, Maddie Bovard, Distributed Creatives, Jenny Barton, ArtsWave. The Arts Education Committee, Abe Flores, Create California, Mary DeLurba, Arts Education Partnership, Bette Charmelis, Highmark Mann Center for the Performing Arts, DeLuke Smith, Creating Abundance Collective, Ruth Mercado-Zizzo, Ed Vesters, and Dr. Clarence McFerrin, Texas Tech University. I'm gonna ask you to hold. We have a lot of incredible names to get through, and then we can give them a rounding applause. The Action and Advocacy Committee, David Holland Scannison, Jess Penna, Fairbanks Art Association, Cynthia Chen, Creative West, Lee Bynum, Maestra Music, Lance Nielsen, Nebraskans for the Arts, Rachel Garcia, Mexican Cultural Center. Arts and Civic Life Committee, Maria Carlin Chiquin, Vizcaya Museum and Gardens, Anika Tanay, Creative West, Stephen Boudreau, Art and Health Strategist, Isis Ferguson, Arts and Public Life, Sally Ann Clues, ShiftWorks Community and Public Arts. Empowering Rural Arts and Culture Committee, Dr. Astrid Kammerling, the Education Foundation of America, Krista Aina, Arts Council for Wyoming County, Joe Allen, Manaman Arts Initiative, Dr. Hannah Allman, Batangos, Art of the Rural. Nonprofit Strategy Committee, Catherine Mooring, Mocha Partners LLC, Tara Esquivel, University of Southern California, Aria Shelton, Culture Works, Greater Philadelphia, Paul Marengo, Corinthian Fundraising, Ariel Fristo, Out of Hand Theater. Arts and Economic Prosperity Committee, Ellen Placey Wadey, Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, Casey Lauders, could be pretty cool, Nick Rock, You Belong Here, LLC, Daria Pilgrim, Hillard Creative District, Chloe Little, Arts and Culture Advocate and Financial Professional. Readiness Response and Community Care Committee, Michelle Dobbins, Houston Arts Alliance, Tom Clareson, Performing Arts Readiness, Laceris, Molly Quinlan Hayes, National Coalition for Arts Preparedness and Emergency Response, Matthew Cowell, Majestic Collaborations. And finally, Arts, Humanities, and Community Vitality Committee, Mitch Menchaca, Greater Columbus Arts Council, Phoebe Stein, Foundation of State Humanities Councils, Jason Mancini, Connecticut Humanities, Gabriel Lyon, Illinois Humanities, and Yenny Tassay, Kenbridge Advisory. Please join me in thanking them for their leadership. And I want to thank them not only for their leadership, but for their openness, their generosity, and their willingness to engage so deeply with both the opportunities and the challenges ahead of us. So know how much we appreciate each and every one of you. And now we're excited to begin hearing directly from the pathways themselves. And to guide us through these incubator share-outs and to bring our first group to the stage, it is my pleasure to welcome someone who has shaped so much of this work from the very beginning and is really the glue holding all of this together, my dear, dear colleague, Mandy Lee.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Mandy. Good to see you guys again. I'd like to introduce my fabulous colleagues who are going to do some share-outs for me. First, we have Ariel Fristo, we have Mary Del Urba, and we have Cynthia Chen, who came with props. Thank you, Cynthia. Yes. All right. I know we're running a little bit behind today, and some folks have to catch their plane, so I'm going to hand it right over to you, Ariel. Tell us what you did this week and yesterday.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Here's what we explored on the nonprofit strategy pathway, where we confronted the realities of running a nonprofit arts organization in 2026, where some old models are broken and some best practices no longer work. We heard about strategies for non-traditional revenue streams for arts nonprofits, governance strategies, strategies for building ethical and sustainable leadership pipelines, innovative program strategies for community-centered nonprofits. And we had a workshop in community collaborations that generate new audiences, revenue, and community support for the arts. We heard a slew of possibilities for new revenue streams we can try at home, including equity crowdfunding, tax-exempt bond financing, providing rentals, corporate training, leveraging arts and health for new revenue, business-to-business contracts for programs that serve community needs, and cross-sector collaboration grants. We were urged to reset expectations for our boards of directors to reframe their role as support rather than control, to separate giving and governance, and to recruit board members who truly represent the communities we are called to serve. We were urged to develop the next leaders of our organizations from within our organizations, advocate for our colleagues, provide professional development for our staffs, if only because it is far less expensive than replacing staff members who leave. And lead by example, by taking time off and making sure that we don't overwork our staff. We were nourished by printmaking, no slide for that, but that's what you can see our beautiful prints another time. They're being turned into a quilt, apparently. We saw examples of cross-sector collaborations with public health and with corporations. We heard that community-centered means collaborating with your community from the start of developing art, not just having them in the audience. We were urged to do the work to understand deeply who our audiences are and to expand our idea of who we serve, why, and how. To release control, even under all of the stress and constraints of our work, to invite our audiences to play a greater role in designing our programs. Because the tighter you hold control, the more likely you are to lose it. Here's how you can be part of this. Find regional partners to keep this energy going when you get home. Try one of the new revenue strategies. Take a hard look at your board and consider reframing their role or recruiting new community members to your board. Invest in your staff. Try a cross-sector collaboration. And also maybe try asking your community how you can support them through the arts and not just asking your community to support the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. That was great. And if it's okay with my folks, I know Ariel has a flight to catch. We are going to do most of the Q&As at the end, but I did want to give an opportunity if anyone in the audience did have questions for Ariel or the nonprofit pathway. I'll take those now so I can let you go. Any questions? It's okay if there's no questions. I know it's early this morning, but know that there will be an opportunity to ask questions as we go. All right, I don't want you to miss your flight, so I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you, Ariel. And I'm going to move down here so I'm not talking awkwardly across a long way. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Tell me about what you guys did in Arts Ed this week.
I would love to. So I am representing the Arts Education Pathway. Yeah. But I am not the first person on this stage talking about how essential arts education is. Our plenary speakers, time and time again on this stage, said that arts education is the issue that we all should be focused on. And we know, we work in arts education, that safe arts education actually saves lives. So during our incubator, we talked about arts education policy and how all arts education policy is education policy, and we talked about how arts education impacts the entire arts ecosystem. So our question was, how do we expand our definition of what arts education is to fulfill this potential? So to this end, we started our incubator with 2 panels. Our first panel included early career arts professionals to really get us grounded in the why of this work. And then our second panel included arts education policy leaders at the local, state, national, and international level to get us thinking about the how of this work. And so those panels surfaced some really promising ideas for us to think about and how to address the barriers that we identified in our workshops. So I want to use the time that I have to briefly share our draft action agenda that our group surfaced. So we generated over 40 ideas for what this group could do to support arts education. And then we clustered those and consolidated them into 7 main points. The first is to design a policy agenda that includes K-12, out-of-school time, and cross-sector partnerships. It's a big one. The second was around increasing funding, not just for arts education programming, but for leadership development of the people guiding this work. The third is to develop clear, consistent, and adaptable messaging that can be flexible in our constantly changing environment. The fourth is to increase alignment across existing coalitions and organizations. So groups like AFTA, like my organization, the Arts Education Partnership. How can we better align what we are doing to serve the arts education field? We talked about the need to define goals and plans for the continued convenings that Ayanna just mentioned. We want to create an asset map. We want to collect and share success stories and data and resources, all in the spirit of continuous improvement. But finally, and most importantly, to do all of this, we first have to build a bigger table. We had an incredible group at our incubator, but we know that we need to be better about including young people, incarcerated people, indigenous communities, teachers, school, district leaders, teaching artists, and so many more people. So we're really committed to that. So our call to AFTA is to continue to create space for this work to keep these conversations accessible. I know that we are all grateful for the low registration fee to be a part of this event and for the attention to keeping these conversations going. We're also grateful to have had so many students in our incubator yesterday to be a part of these conversations. Yeah! So we are really eager to keep it going. So over the next 2 months, we're going to compile and share our thinking. We're going to get that shared out to you. We're going to define a meeting structure to keep this work moving. And this is just a starting point. So please, we invite you to join us. We especially want to call in philanthropy. We know that we can't do this work without the capacity that you all bring to us. So please join us. So we heard multiple times that arts education is the most important issue for arts advocates. I would guess that we are all here because of arts education in some way. So let's continue to work on this together.
Thank you so much, Mary. Yeah. I'm so proud of my people, both Ariel and Mary and all the committees, but they're some of the ones I help lead. But now I'm excited to hear from Cynthia because I haven't been in these action advocacy groups. So tell me more about this and tell us about this beautiful presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Mandy. I'm super happy to be representing our committee here. So something that the Action and Advocacy Pathway really was interested in exploring, we got assigned the Route 66 Visitor Center, so we got really excited about this idea of mapping the road to advocacy. And we ran with this journey of how advocacy is not only a long game, but really it is a journey, and thinking a lot about something that we really focused on was exploring how artists, arts organizations, and cultural workers can build collective power through advocacy, coalition building, and civic engagement. And I think the participants really had an opportunity to think about their roles as individuals or within an organization or within a coalition, and thinking about how to enter into that journey, and thinking about the things that they bring and the skills that they bring. In several of the breakout sessions, we really dove into that. Our first one was Art is Labor, and thinking about in the organizing work, if we're not centering the artists in the advocacy work, what are we doing? Like building that base. And then our second session was Policy as Practice, Administrative Power and Model Legislation. And I guess this brings us along in thinking about how the role of, it was an expansion of thinking about the roles that different people can play and institutions. That session was probably our wonkiest in understanding how individuals can do more to understand how administration can push policy forward. They were looking at how understanding an ordinance maybe can help you put your festival forward, or if they're understanding how you can work with state and municipal policy and how that ties into federal policy, and that whole thread all the way down. And then we had our final collective, our final session was on grassroots voices and really understanding how this work really needs to center care as well. It's a long road. Artists are doing this work, and artists don't have to work with institutions that don't center their living wage. It's a choice. Artists are advocates themselves. And I think something that emerged in our conversation is that we're at a very interesting inflection point in our society. We have to look at the old ways that we're doing our advocacy work, and yes, continue those. Look at how we're funding public arts. That is fundamental and important, but also we're shifting into a time where we really need to examine the new ways of doing work, thinking expansively about how policy impacts artists across the board in healthcare, in wage, in housing, in all of these different areas. And so that was a really interesting, at sometimes a tension point, but actually I think really, really important. So how are we continuing to do the work, the advocacy work in the old ways and in the new ways? And so some of the things that I really wanted to share with the group that I heard was, one, arts advocacy is most effective when it's connected to broader community needs. So thinking about the needs of the community. Two, coalition building is the foundation of durable advocacy. How are we reaching out to many sectors that are already doing great work in the advocacy space? And three, artists are not only beneficiaries of advocacies, they are advocates. And in thinking about how, where we could go next and what we can go do from here, I think something that came up over and over again was an expansion of the cross-sector advocacy campaigns that intentionally collect artists and culture workers to broader economic justice, workforce development, healthcare, education, and community development efforts. And really look at creating ongoing coalition networks, working groups, advocacy cohorts, resource sharing systems, and figuring out how we can follow up on some of these ideas that were surfaced in our pathway. Yeah, I think something that we did that I really loved in our pathway was we mapped this whole journey. We had folks identify, okay, what is the destination that you're trying to get to with your advocacy work, and really dig into the why. Because I think sometimes when we think about our work, one of the ideas that really struck me in the collective power panel in the breakout was, what is your lane? I think everybody brings something really unique to the advocacy work, and trying to identify your skills, the packing list, that was a metaphor that we used in this map. What are you bringing along with your journey, and how are you finding the folks along that journey to lighten the load? So yeah, I think our call out, is that do the work in yourself, find your lane, find others who will help you get there, and hopefully this conference has been helpful in that journey for you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, round of applause for them. Absolutely. Do we have any questions from the audience for Mary or Cynthia? Any questions? I see people taking notes, which I love. I love that you guys are taking notes. And I do want to add, I'm going to say this at the end again, but I'm going to throw up a QR code when we're done with these presentations for you guys to sign up for those email networks. I want to just plug that again. I know that Ayana mentioned it at the beginning, but we're really excited about continuing these conversations. And I know it's early on a Friday at the end of the convention, but if there are questions that come up as you're marinating on all these things, that's going to be a great place to throw those questions. So let's bring up the next group.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, I like when I get claps just for saying good morning, and that's all I'm really saying up here. So I'm going to pass it over to Hannah from our Empowering Rural Arts and Culture pathway to give their incubator report out. Yeah, big whoops for that. Hannah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So during our incubator, we gave rural artists and organizations the floor to express their stories, needs, visions for their communities and creative practice. And we're super grateful as well for our urban neighbors who joined us for the day too, to listen, learn, and move towards collaboration. Advocating for rural arts and culture is vital at a time when about 20% of the US population is rural, and yet it receives less than 7% of philanthropic giving across sectors. This is also a moment when mainstream media narratives that are often created about us, but not for or by us, continue to contribute to increased polarization and misrepresentation of rural people and places, which we know to be as diverse, creative, and complex as the geographies that we call home. So during our incubator, through an array of Post-it notes, small group discussions, and collaborative storytelling, several common threads emerged. And these might sound a little familiar. We heard a need for relationship building, interpersonally and with partners and funders, both rural and urban. We know these relationships take trust, and trust takes time. Working in our context, we know for these relationships to work, we need long-term commitment and responsibility to rural people and places. We heard that funding frameworks and metrics that are often developed by urban-based institutions don't necessarily fit us or capture the diversity of our community's creativity, and these things can be at the heart of the funding challenges that rural artists and organizations face. And I love this story told yesterday about a small town play where on stage, backstage, and in the audience, 300 people were present and participating, and that was literally the entire town. And that's just one of the examples. Through our time together, affirmations emerged. As rural artists and organizations, we are our best storytellers and our best advocates. We often wear many hats in many roles of our communities, and we work across partisan divides and difference daily. And as locally rooted public servants, we know best how to apply the resources that we're given. With funders and policymakers disproportionately based in urban areas, we articulated a need for collaboration and mutual respect throughout what participants put as the rural-urban continuum, not a divide. As rural artists and organizations, we recognize and call for this interdependence. Together, through time and the trust and collaboration that comes with it, we can invest in and empower artists and culture bearers in the places we call home, and shift this national narrative about rural communities more broadly, not as places defined by some lack, but instead to how we live and know them, as places of creative abundance, and as Springboard's Michelle Anderson put it, quote, as the quiet front lines of social justice. So how do we do this? As mentioned, it's going to take time. And as my colleagues often say, we have to build relationships and cultivate collaboration at the speed of trust. In building networks committed to this work, bringing together rural artists and organizations with often urban funders and grant makers, we can co-create opportunities and metrics to better represent and attend to rural creativity, participation, and identity. We can co-create humane grant project timelines that reflect and center the long-term, place-based nature of rural arts and culture while avoiding prescription and, importantly, extraction. And as we empower rural artists as the storytellers, sharing nuanced stories about rural life across the continent. So what specifically is going to happen next? Well, first, we're going to get home after a couple layovers, rest, recover, and reflect on everything we shared and experienced together this week. Then we're going to build up our Pathway email network, scan that QR code, even if you're rural curious, before surveying this network for their needs, desires, and ideas for future connection and resource development, before intentionally designing a virtual gathering to really keep the conversation going and get more face time together. So we really call on everyone, rural, urban, and in between, to stay in touch with us and help us grow this interdependent, supportive ecosystem. Together, we can amplify and support rural artists and organizations by uplifting their stories, by investing in their places and practices, and by fostering trust toward long-term relationships and collaboration across geographies. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And that was my pathway. So thank you, Hannah, and all my other pathway committee members. Jenny, tell us about creative technology. What happened this week?
Yeah, so our committee was or our pathway rather, was the Creative Work Agency and Technology and the Future of the Arts. And we met over at the absolutely fabulous Albuquerque Balloon Museum. So thank you for having us there, because it was a phenomenal setting for this and very inspirational. We started our day with a really wonderful panel that included another pathway committee member, which was Theo Edmonds. And he was the moderator, and he really focused on learning to ask better questions and doubling down on curiosity, and how that is a way that we can explore meaning in our lives and meaning in the sector. Then we heard from Dr. Ronnie Ryder-Paulman, who is a neuroscientist who specifically studies human creativity in the brain. So that was really interesting, and she busted a lot of myths for us. We heard about things people assume about creativity but may not be true, which was also a really great setup for the day. And finally, we heard from Barbara Ford Grant, who's a creative technology executive, former CTO of Meow-Wolf, chair of the Academy of Sci-Tech Awards Committee. You may be more familiar with her work in Shrek and Jurassic Park. She is the digital artist for that. So that was just absolutely amazing to hear from her and how she's using technology to shift realities for people and create that new worlds. And then when we went into the incubator after our session, what we really focused on was writing better questions and for the sector, because sometimes innovation really comes from the unknowns rather than the knowns. So how do we double down on our curiosity about the sector? Some of the key insights that came out of this is we knew we weren't going to come up with like a really big solution in an afternoon, right? And so what we wanted to do was find a solution that would synthesize the work that we were doing for the day and also celebrated the arts. So we had another one of our committee members who is a poet named Maddie B. write a poem that is the framework that then the community or the participants contributed to with things that they're seeing now, and then we'll build that poem as we go, as we work on solutions. But it starts with, when I look out, I see. And here are some of the insights that came out of the groups of what they see when they look out now. When I look out, I see distrust. When I look out, I see AI as a mirror. When I look out, I see a lack of power and agency for the arts sector. And when I look out, I see a lack of collective language, knowledge, and infrastructure around technology in the arts. So the next part is we went into groups. We broke up into 4 groups, which were technology and creative work, sustainable creative careers, artists and other industries, and creative work in institutions, and looked at how might we questions in response to what we're looking out and seeing. Some of those how might we questions that came out of that, the first one was, how might we make artists feel ethical about making money? How might we build artistic infrastructure in order to shift power to the arts? How might we leverage the power that the arts have now for us to work, how might we leverage the power the arts have now to make AI work for us instead of against us, and make society give a shit about the arts? Sorry it took me so long to get there. It was worth it, right? So, we identified some key barriers and key enablers and came up with creative steps of, what we're really going to do next is really finalize those questions and really explore what do we want to really address in the world of technology and the arts. And something that came out really interesting is we realized that none of us really talked about the technology right? Everything that we talked about centered on the people. And I think that's what we do in the arts, is we center on the people. But the big outcome, I think, the big thing that we really thought about at the end is, how do we change the power structures so that powerful technology we aren't harmed by powerful technology when it comes out? Because even if we could take AI and put it back in Pandora's box, which is impossible, whatever comes next would also potentially harm us, because we don't have systems of power in place that protects the arts. So how do we change that so that technology always works for us and is never a threat?
Thank you.
Oh, wait. You have
Thank you, Jenny. All right, Stephen, tell us about Civic Life Pathway. How was your week?
Thank you, Mandy. How was my week? Crazy. It was really, really wonderful working with the team of rock stars that I got to work with as we dug into this notion of arts in and as civic life. So our team's core focus was really a challenge framed as an opportunity. How can arts and culture be positioned, resourced, and practiced as civic infrastructure rather than treated as a programmatic add-on, venue-based activity, or a late-stage engagement tool? So our working frame was this. The incubator explored how artists, culture bearers, civic leaders, public agencies, educators, healthcare systems, planners, workforce partners, youth, and community members can work together as peers to build belonging, trust, public imagination, and shared stewardship across civic life. So what were the key highlights and themes that surfaced through our incubator experience and across our breakouts? Number one, arts and culture are already doing civic work. The field needs to recognize, name, resource, and scale what communities already know. Number two, care and belonging are not soft outcomes, they are infrastructure. Across sessions, participants return to civic care, shared stewardship, wraparound supports, mutual aid, mental health, public health, and friendly familiarity among strangers as practical conditions for civic trust and democratic life. Number three, civic work needs, and dare I say requires, imagination, poetics, listening, collaboration, and local knowledge. 4, leadership infrastructure matters as much as physical infrastructure. 5, the rooms we were in kept widening the circle. Participants named elected officials, city and county managers, state and federal education leaders, youth, faith communities, healthcare partners, planners, rebels and disruptors, struggling artists, elder and older artists, alternative arts practitioners, and people outside the arts as missing or under-engaged voices. And lastly, scale out, not scale up. There's your bumper sticker. Thanks. Solutions to our civic crises are deeply localized and specific to the places and communities that develop them. Desired civic care models, which include the arts, should support community autonomy and self-determination. So from this wisdom, the following promising ideas and solutions were surfaced. Number 1, we need civic imagination models for local government. Not a decorative artist-in-residence program, a new civic operating model where artists are treated as equals at the problem-solving table. Number 2, build a failure library. I love this. And a shared language glossary. That means creating searchable set of case studies, failed pilots, learning memos, field descriptions and definitions, and implementation tools organized around 4 corners of civic life: narrative and culture, policy and resource flow, place and public realm, and care and well-being. Develop leadership and action cohort models. Leverage them as a way to move ideas from conference energy into tested civic practice. And lastly, consider low-barrier civic art spaces, activations, and engagement in places where arts and arts resourcing deserts exist. So some action steps across short, mid, and long-term horizons that we thought we could consider in partnership with all of you and AFTA are 1, consolidate incubator outputs into field-facing synthesis mapping projects. 2, draft a prototype civic arts partnership framework that shows how artists can be embedded in public decision-making from the beginning. And 3, launch a small working group or cohort, test 1 or 2 ideas before the next AFTACON cycle, a failure model, a model library, a municipal artist partnership pilot, a mentorship circle, a workforce community development college arts program, or an art desert activation, and pair each pilot with simple evaluation, documentation, and a learning memo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I love that I heard human infrastructure across all 3 of your incubators and the importance of the people. So when I look out, I see people who might have questions. Yes, I see Jess Pena has a question. Can someone please bring her a microphone? Come on, Jess.
So that was all really exciting stuff. Really excited about the concept of a model library, and while I was particularly excited about the idea of a failure library, my brain immediately goes to context is everything. And so I think I'd be curious to see a model library where those context considerations are included in those models, like, you know, what was the leadership infrastructure, or what was sort of missing from this circumstance within the model that may be appropriate a different time under or with different context. And so I think having some of those case studies and what was missing systemically or contextually would be really exciting. So just wanted to plus one that, and good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And 100%, right? We need well-rounded, holistic case studies that take into consideration all of the factors of a work and its failures and why.
Thank you, Jess. Who else has a question for our 3 pathways up here? All right, well, you can sign up for all these networks afterwards. Thank you all so much.
Georgia, the whole day through, just an old sweet song that keeps Georgia on my mind. Georgia on my mind. Well, Georgia.
Y'all don't want a solo. I was about to start. Hello, friends, cousins, artists, and everybody gathered. My name is Dr. Jenna Stiles-Lias. I am the director. All right, shout out to me. Yes. I work as the director of Local Arts Agency, Community Engagement, and Equity in Research. And I'm happy to be joined by 3 fantastic Pathway Committee representatives. First, not the best, but my particular one, because I don't want to do no shade, right? There's lots of pathways here, but I have 2 favorites. Nick from the Arts and Economic Sustainability Pathway. Whoop, whoop. Give it up. And also shout out to Stephen. Okay, give us what you all did.
Right, so as Jenna said, we were the Arts and Economics Pathway, and so what this was about really is helping us develop alternative pathways to sustainability for arts and culture. And that's big. It entails a lot, and there's not one solution. So when we put this together as a group, shout out to Chloe, Alan, Casey, that's my team. When we put this together as a group, we were thinking about our 3 breakout sessions. Number 1 was capital beyond grants, right? So there's this thing called federal defunding. States are cutting budgets for arts and culture. We know we cannot rely on grants anymore, right? So that was our first breakout session concentration. And those discussions in that breakout session was all about how do we start looking at alternatives such as impact investments, right? How do we start looking into things like bonds, money market tax credits, new market tax credits. A lot of language that's not familiar to us in the arts. And so that came up. And our second breakout session was all about creative pathways to workforce development. We know arts can create jobs. What does that look like? How do we build that infrastructure? Who needs to be in the room? And the third breakout session was all about cross-sector. It was called Make It Make Sense, which I really love that title. And it was about cross-sector messaging. How do you communicate the value that arts and culture can bring to not just the community, but to the city, to the state, and even on national level? How do you communicate to these different industries and let them know that we as artists are part of this larger ecosystem and we're team players? And we're very adaptable. We're quick. We learn fast. And so that culminated into our incubator, in which we really wanted to take the audience through these steps. Like, if we want to get you to start thinking about alternative pathways to capital, what does that look like? And so our incubator was all focused on ecosystem development. We have to step outside of just our arts organizations. And I know there's so many disciplines in this room and we work together, but now we are operating in somewhat of a silo. So we were thinking, how can we start getting one another to think about tech, healthcare, land developers as being partners that we can co-build with. And so our incubator created those pathways for them, a little framework to help them work through how do you build an ecosystem? Who's the potential partner? Next was, how do you do asset mapping? How do you leverage what you have within your community as an individual artist, cultural knowledge, community trust? How do you leverage that to actually move the ball and into a conversation to build a partnership? Then we went into just understanding capital stacks. And I think the greatest takeaway is that we didn't know that there were so many different possibilities with capital stacks. People were amazed. They're like, we didn't know that this money existed. And then lastly, we did messaging. How do you actually pitch that message? And so I want to share a couple of things that came up. And it was all around language. People were saying, okay, we're happy we know this information. How do we get to it? And a couple of things was about language. One of them was about business development, professional development. We need those resources that are tailored to the arts. Essentially, we don't know what we don't know. And another call to action was, we do want to build across sectors, civic, tech, but also interdisciplinary. I think with Cynthia Chen was talking about steps to advocacy. We want frameworks to advocacy because we cannot grow economically without having a framework, without having some type of blueprint and a shared language about what is capital, what's capital doing right now in our economy. And we want a blueprint to essentially tell us, okay, capital is doing this, it's happening in this geography space, and here are the type of funds. So that was a huge insight from our group. I was really surprised. It was just language, because I think artists are very adaptable, and what we need is some type of advocacy framework moving forward that can connect all of the disciplines and help us build coalitions with one another and have these takeaway frameworks. Sorry, I said framework several times, but that's it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Molly. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I am pleased to be here on behalf of the Readiness, Response, and Community Care Pathway Committee. We framed our incubator day by recognizing that disasters of all types are happening in overlapping and cascading ways. No matter how you define disaster, they are happening all the time now. We explored what our role is in both preparing ourselves and our communities for natural disasters, for human-caused disasters, from accidents to violence, technological disasters, and administrative disasters. Everything from funding cuts and sudden loss of leadership to ICE raids and socio-political change. The committee wanted to engage in a conversation about arts infrastructure as resilience infrastructure, and how we can and must make preparedness more central to our work. We started the day with a fireside chat with New Mexico's Deborah Garcia y Griego and former NEA Chair Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson. And Dr. Jackson cautioned us that it's short-sighted to think of resiliency as technical, that resiliency includes culture, play, imagination, and it's not something that you try to build when you need it. It's something that has to be available through a practice of activities that add up to resilience. And we heard that networks are the key to thriving and surviving after a crisis. We heard Katie Cornell from Western North Carolina talk about how the immediate response to Hurricane Helene was successful because there was already an existing network of locals with a history of collegiality, connection, and trust. They held trust within their network and provided mutual aid and support, but they also held trust with their communities. Things that we heard and learned, a tabletop exercise that was produced by Matthew Cowell of Ready When, where the lights literally went out, was a safe space to act out a community-wide crisis. And we were able to suss out the assets and roles that various cultural anchors can offer. In one of these fictional events, it was reported that our most weirdly valuable asset turned out to be the Community Arts Center because it became the community survival center. It was interesting throughout the day, a lot of the insights that we surfaced were two-sided coins. One was that when a crisis happens, we need to consider the impact on arts and arts organizations and artists, and the role of artists and cultural organizations as active agents in resilience and recovery. Yes, we need to advocate for resources to get to those who need it, and we need to come to the table as an equal partner and resource, not as a supplicant. Two, with preparation, our people and strengths and buildings can be significant. Tim Russo from KGNU Community Radio in Boulder told us about the station's new building and said we really focused on creating a resilience hub that would allow us to stay online, but also attend to the needs that we've been hearing about over the last 10 years. But on the flip side, if we're not trained and resourced, we may actually do harm, such as a well-meaning artist offering programming, but not having an understanding of trauma-informed response. Three, it's easy to see how arts interventions can make people feel better after a disruptive event. A quote, there need to be activities for people to do, not just survival. And we are generally overlooking the operational skills and tangible assets that we can deploy. Spaces that can be response resources, people who understand how to manage large events and crowds safely. Four, to be effective, we need relationships with emergency management, with community response, which can look like inviting them into our spaces and processes, and getting invited to the table to talk about community readiness and response with them, again, as an equal partner, not with our hat in hand. And five, while all disasters are local, with impact and response happening at the local level, it's critical for these vertical relationships to be healthy, from city, county, state, to federal, and in the reverse, because that's how response and recovery resources flow. Then we talked about where this can go. Much can happen within what we're already doing. We can utilize our festivals, our events, our exhibits, our trainings that we're already producing and use those as classrooms to strengthen skills and knowledge in preparing for and responding to crises. Leverage the value of everyone in the organization, those who run programs, those who clean and secure our facilities, the CEO, because they're all seeing different things and we can have a more expansive view of how all people can help. And have conversations about readiness and resilience in all directions, inside your organization, outside with your stakeholders and your community, up and down along this spine of city, county, federal, state partners, and with your networks to build that capacity for mutual support as they did in Western North Carolina. A quote, "Those friends from before can make a huge difference in the way a community experiences and recovers from a crisis." And finally, our participants were tasked with developing compelling language to help move resources by engaging board members, funders, and community partners in a commitment to invest time, people, spaces, and funding towards readiness and response. So we have a compilation of those values-aligned messages that will be part of our incubator report out. And things that can happen next. You can sign up for our Pathways email network, explore the resources that we'll share. You can sign up for the NCAPER email list. You can invite those potential partners into your space to attend your events, to get to know who you are and what you provide. Invite them to attend AFTACON 2027 with you, and seek out convenings of emergency managers, city and county leaders and planners to attend yourself. And how the near future can roll out, at the 1-month mark, we'll connect this Pathways work to the NCAPER and Performing Arts Readiness community of over 4,000, with a blog post that's also marking AFTA's role in helping create NCAPER 20 years ago this year, following Hurricane Katrina. July is the NEA's next arts projects grants deadline, and projects with disaster relief and emergency response and preparedness for artists and arts organizations are eligible projects. They can include trainings, mitigation projects, planning projects, technical assistance. In September, the University of Kentucky is hosting Readiness Reimagined, an arts disaster and crisis preparedness conference. There's a pre-conference focusing on networks and a roundtable where all of us AFTACONers will be able to reconvene in person and online. And please talk about this. Talk with your team, your networks, find your local emergency manager, and communicate about why this is urgent now. And finally, we want to recall Dr. Jackson's advice that the network structures, intentions, and plans must be developed ahead of time, the muscle memory must be built, and the networks must be operating. Because by putting the pieces together during blue sky times, we'll be more resilient on stormy days.
Snaps. I love that. Gabrielle, go ahead.
I feel better already. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of the work. I'm Gabrielle Lyon. I'm the Executive Director of Illinois Humanities, and I get to report out on the Arts, Humanities, and Cultural Vitality Pathway. Is anyone here, did anyone that's here right now participate in that? Yes, right? So you can ask them how awesome it was firsthand, because I'm biased. I also just wanted to tell like a little quick story of the origin of this pathway. So last year in April, all state humanities councils funding was terminated, and Erin Harkey reached out and said, hey, is there anything AFTA can do to help? And I said, could we just have a room? Like we just need a room, we need to get together. And last year, a number of councils came to AFTA in Cincinnati. We did an adaptive strategies working session, and the last part was just meeting and networking with our counterparts in the arts. And that really fueled a sense of inclusion and belonging and possibility. And so I was so grateful when AFTA decided to build out a pathway. And so a little bit about the pathway, because there were so many choices, not everybody could do everything. It's great to have this reflective session. But really what we wanted to do in this pathway was heighten awareness about the, essentially the Venn diagram between arts and humanities, because when we share that, when we share our superpowers, we both have the possibility of having people change, but also that stuff that makes systems change. And that's really where we see this really important alignment. So when all of you who are artists are doing things like asking questions about how do we tell our stories well, that's the humanities, that's the skill set of the humanities. Or asking, really interrogative questions like whose stories get told and heard and why. That's also the humanities. And so I think we really wanted to think about what does it mean to create these sessions. Also, one thing that was really cool in the sessions that came together, not everybody that was presenting together already knew each other, and that all by itself was really invigorating. The people that came together in those rooms, they left with connections and ideas, and that was also really invigorating. So, you know, I'm hearing a lot of overlap. I'm not going to be redundant with the report outs from the other sessions, but I just want to name that as being maybe one of the most important things that happened. Fostering belonging, identity, centering lived experiences, that's all the humanities. And so when we do these things with intentionality and we develop those skills, it's a craft just like crafting an artistic practice. And I think throughout the course of the sessions, that was sometimes implicit, sometimes the implicit, sometimes the subtext, but often it was explicit. And I think that's really what we were trying to bring forward in our pathways. So what was the rocket fuel that got created by all of these folks coming together? I think the first thing is, you know, massive, massive opportunity to fund relationship infrastructure. The building of the relationships is sometimes more important than the outputs. And so I think we're hearing don't undervalue those kinds of things. Lots of ideas about creative funding models because we had this cross-section of economic development, tourism, ideas about reflective dialogue being the threads of civic fabric. We have a few things on deck, and we are excited. Please join us. I loved the idea of like being rural curious. If you're arts and humanities and community vitality curious, come on down. 3 months, we're really interested in data. Like, let's do a formal audit of relationship infrastructure. In the world that I live in, there's a thing called Our Common Purpose. It's all about civics and humanities and how they help. We need to know and organize around knowns. We're really interested 6 months down the line, having a peer feedback network, you know, polishing our pitch and adding value. We can get better at that with each other's help. And I think 9 months, we're really thinking about scaling around as well as up so that we can implement kind of culture-first strategies in non-arts arenas. And also, frankly, leaning into AFTA as an agent of both backbone support and kind of carving out that horizon informed by what we think most matters. So I really want to close. I'm also the closer. So just so you know, there's no more of these after me. There's more different stuff happening. I just want to close by thanking AFTA, my partners, Tiffany and Valerie, who helped put our pathway together. And thank you so much for hosting this reflection up here on stage.
Ooh. Girl, you are a closer. Okay. Give it up for Gabrielle. You can be on any panel. Like, we just want to, everybody. Molly, too. That was a mic drop. So anyways, questions, comments, thrills, takeaway. Oh, yes, question.
Hello, New Mexico.
Hey, woo!
All right, so I'm from here. My name's Mike Dawson. I run a brand new embryonic nonprofit called Assignment Universe. My case study was to produce a festival for Eastern New Mexico University, and I did it a couple years ago. But my question is, this is the AFTACON. So the wreckage of the healthcare system in our country, sometimes I see it as a lack of cohesion between various organizations and institutions. So I wonder if AFTA can figure out a way to consolidate all of the partners and all of the different organizations that are a part of this conference to collectively create a healthcare platform so we can all afford to have wellness and well-being. It's an idea. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Yes, we love big ideas. We welcome big ideas. I'm going to repeat back to you. Health, like some sort of infrastructure for healthcare.
Yeah,
for
you have to take a day job.
For artists.
I had to take a day job to get good healthcare in New Mexico. You have to wait 2 months, 2 years rather, for a doctor in New Mexico.
Yes.
You know, and so it's everywhere. I'm not saying it's just here.
That's right. That's right.
How do we do that collectively? Maybe you guys can leverage that so we can work together.
What's a collective strategy? I hear you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. More.
Hello, thank you to everyone. I'm Sarah Longholland. I'm from Evanston, Illinois. Thank you to everyone. First of all of these report outs were great, and it would be so lovely if we could get the speaker's notes. That would be great, AFTA. The other thing that is on my mind is that there are crossovers and intersections between these multiple pathways, and I would just offer to all of us to think about ways to not silo the pathways. For example, Gabe, when you were talking, I was thinking about my rising junior in high school whose favorite class this year, much to their surprise, was civics. And their civics teacher is actually an amazing artist. And I would love to connect that Illinois-based teacher to you to learn about the Council on the Humanities and how he can engage with your work. And that's arts education and civic infrastructure and humanities. And so if we can think about ways to not put ourselves in buckets, even though these pathways were intensive and intentional and well-designed, and the conversations were all really rich. So that's, I guess, more of a comment than a question. But if anybody has a response, that would be great, and thank you.
You have both in there. Thank you. Give it up. Thank you so much. I'm a do just one plug just to the easier question, which is the speaker notes. Done. That can happen. But to the rest, sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. When I was synthesizing the notes with Jenna earlier, something that came up for our group was, if we're talking about working cross sectors, we want to have language with those outside the arts. We did ask as a group, why are we not having languages across the pathways? Because even listening to everyone this morning, there's so much intersection. We're all asking for advocacy blueprints and frameworks. We're all asking about coalition building. We're all asking about how do you have communication and create messaging across different sectors, across disciplines. So I definitely relate to that. I just wanted to shout that out, that I relate 100% to that ask. Because there is so many intersections, and we are at so many like nexuses or nexi, and there's got to be a really cool way to do that, and I know AFTA can do that.
I see you.
You can call me. I'll give you my cell phone number. But you're raising something that I think is actually really important every time we use the word sector. You know, a person doesn't wake up and be like, what sector am I in? I mean, you might if you're like fundraising and finding your language. And I think the more that the gentleman from New Mexico, what's your name? Mike Dawson. He's talking about healthcare, and what he said is true. I'm from New Mexico, my folks live here. It's totally broken. So I do think this issue of cross-sector starts to become much lighter when we just put the person at the center and think about how are we organizing around people and their lives. They wake up, the end. Well, and then they live their lives, and hopefully they're long and really healthy, well-resourced, and there's vacations and fresh food.
Yes.
And books.
Yes to that. Yes to that. Oh, yes.
I thank you for all of this information. David Siegel from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I think a question for all pathways, and probably not to answer right now, these are all great ideas. What are we going to stop doing to make these ideas real? Because they're not real until we decide what we're going to give up to focus on these ideas.
Great question. Yeah, I've got Krista here.
Oh, well, I'll let them answer his question first.
Sorry,
I have another question.
I don't know that we're going to answer that today.
Right.
Yeah, that's a real big question. What are we gonna stop doing, y'all? Everybody said not it. I don't think I think that we're gonna stop fighting each other, working together, stop fighting each other. Yes. Stop living in silo. Celebrate the abundance in community. Come on, give me some more. What else you want? What we gonna stop doing? That's all we got? Well, we got some time. Yeah. Bring in more people. Bring in more people. Bring them in, bring them in, bring them in. Yes. Plus to that. And more. So this was a fantastic question, my friend in the back. We have lots of work to do, and we have lots of answers. So we'll keep working, keep looking for the answer. I don't know if there's one.
Last question right here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Christina. I sat on the Rural Pathways Committee, but yay, yay rural. So this is something that I'm sure my Pathway Committee members and also other rural folks can relate to. And I'm asking because the Economic Development Committee mentioned this in your reporting. So what are some ways to express the value of art to non-art people, which is something that occurs a lot in a rural community?
Thank you for that question. So some things that came up, we were talking about assets and how so much of how art is separated from infrastructure in our country is we're doing all the cool big kid stuff, you guys are just making stuff, right? And we can accept that maybe we don't have like a return on investment. Maybe we're not, outputting billions. But California economy is putting out billions. I'm just going to put that there for the arts. One of the things was like when you're talking about your assets, talk more about the social capital that you as an arts community have. Community trust is huge. You cannot get a land developer to come into a neighborhood they know nothing about and activate something where they're like, oh, it's for the community. Artists know the community. The community trusts artists because they are cultural bearers and they have a cultural knowledge. And so when you start advocating together around social capital, that is strength in itself. Just like the intellectual property, that is an asset that can be leveraged. There's so many different things, but we talk about job creation all the time, and that's maybe not spoken about enough for artists, but it's really powerful because when we think about economic development for cities, we have to really think about in communities capital leakage. If we keep inspiring like our communities to invest in like the local Walmart, no offense to Walmart, we're taking money out of our communities. It's no longer cycling within our communities. And so if we can start advocating for shop local, because shopping local keeps capital in our communities, it builds infrastructure, it builds community wealth, and it gives way to larger visions of activating healthy neighborhoods, affordable housing. So I think that's how we have to leverage those conversations. I hope that answered some of your questions.
I have a super quick one. There's only 4 or 5 places in the state of Illinois that have populations of more than 100,000. So most of our work is actually small towns and rural communities. I'm so excited about your question. And you will know this better than I will. In a town of 600 people, it is always, of course, about relationships. I think one of the struggles in the rural space specifically is you get things like the Rural New Deal coming out from policy wonks, and they have a platform with 9 pillars, and arts and culture isn't one of them. The blindness is not usually in town. So I think that's where, AFTA and some of your municipal and state allies can start to make a difference. So for example, Rushville, Illinois, itty bitty town, they create an arts and humanities hub. And when racist graffiti shows up on a building, the mayor knows to come to the hub to say, hey, I got control of that wall now. Can you make it mean something? So I don't think it's a town-based problem. I actually think it's some of these blinders, and that's the work of the collective also. So the end, sorry.
And this is exactly why we're having these listservs. This is exactly why we're having the 3-month follow-ups, because this can't be the last conversation. This cannot be, right? This was too much fun, first of all. This can't be the last conversation. So keep these kinds of questions on your minds and your hearts, and bring them to discussion so we can grow and we can all have a shared language. We can all start to build that infrastructure together because the room is better because we're all in it. So I think that would be great. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the panelists. I'm so excited about the future of this work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenna.
I don't wonder, I know I should be medicated. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for all those incredible incubator share-outs. What we just heard were not just project updates or reflections, they were real examples of what becomes possible when people come together across disciplines, communities, and perspectives to imagine something bigger than any one organization or sector can do alone. Over these past few days, we've talked a lot about shaping the future of arts and culture and organizing for impact. And what was shared today reminds us the future is already being built through partnerships, experimentation, bold ideas, and the willingness to stay in conversation with one another long after we leave Albuquerque. We know that one of the biggest requests that comes out of AFTACON every year is simple. How do we stay connected? So before we close out this part of the programming today, we want to make that as easy as possible. You'll see a QR code on the screens around the room, and when you scan it, you can sign up for any of our post-AFTACON email networks. You can sign up for all 9, you can sign up for as many as you want. They're organized by pathway and topic area, and whether you want to keep sharing resources, continue conversations, troubleshoot challenges, or build collaborations that started here this week, these networks are designed to help this community continue beyond the conference itself. I've also got one last plug for our evaluation activation. The last question is the same one we asked yesterday because some things take more than a day to answer. What are you taking with you? A new connection, a next step, renewed energy, a strategy you want to try when you get home? Before you head out, stop by and add your block. It only takes a second and completes a picture of our collective future action for you and for everyone who shaped this alongside you. And finally, as we start the last portion of our final day together, we wanted to leave you with one more moment that honors the spirit, creativity, and cultural richness of New Mexico. Please join me in welcoming Mariachi Herencia from Atrisco Heritage High School and help us celebrate the artists and traditions that make this place so extraordinary. Yes!
Pero el día que yo me muera, sé que tendrás que llorar.
Llorar, 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 llorar.
Dirás que no me quisiste, pero vas a estar muy triste y así te me vas a quedar. Con dinero y sin dinero, hago siempre lo que quiero y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey.
Hermoso cariño, y hermoso cariño, que Dios me ha mandado a ser destinado no más para mí. Precioso regalo, precioso regalo. Del cielo ha llegado y que me ha colmado de dicha y de amor. Y hermoso cariño, y hermoso cariño. Ya estoy como un niño con nuevo juguete, contento y feliz. No puedo evitarlo y quiero gritarlo. Hermoso cariño que Dios me ha mandado no más para mí. Este amor apasionado anda todo alborotado por volver. Voy camino a la locura y aunque todo me tortura, sé querer. Nos dejamos hace tiempo, pero me llegó el momento de perder. Tú tenías mucha razón, le hago caso al corazón y me muero por volver. Y volver, volver. Otra vez. Hasta donde estés, yo sé perder, quiero volver, volver, volver. Y volver, volver. Volver a tus brazos otra vez. Llegaría hasta donde estés, yo sé perder, quiero volver, volver, volver.
gusta el mariachi? Herencia. Sí, señor.
Vagando paso en la vida, no más recorriendo el mundo. Y si quieren que se los diga, yo soy un alma sin dueño, a mí no me importa nada, a mí la vida es un sueño. Yo tomo cuando yo quiero, no miento, soy muy sincero. Yo soy como las gaviotas, volando de puerto en puerto. Yo sé que la vida es corta, al bien que también la debo. Ahora sí, échale todos, échale todos. El día que yo me muera, no voy a llevarme nada. Hay que darle gusto al gusto. La vida pronto se acaba. Lo que pasó en este mundo, no más el recuerdo queda. Ya muerto voy a llevarme. Ay, no más un puño de tierra. Sí, señor. Es el mariachi. Herencia de Atrisco. Yo tomo cuando yo quiero, no miento, soy muy sincero. Y yo soy como las gaviotas, volando de puerto en puerto. Yo sé que la vida es corta, al bien que también la debo. Ahora sí, échale otra vez. El día que yo me muera, no voy a llevarme nada. Hay que darle gusto al gusto. La vida pronto se acaba. Lo que pasó en este mundo, no más de recuerdo queda. Y ya muerto voy a llevarme. Mi caballo, mi caballo. No más un puño de tierra.
Why vote for the arts?
Because the arts are essential.
Because the arts matter.
Because arts teach empathy.
Because they bring people together.
This is about access.
This is about representation.
This is about making sure the arts are seen, valued, and funded.
Right now, the arts are under threat.
But 76% of Americans believe the arts are personally important.
One of the last areas of general agreement across this country.
Americans for the Arts has been here before.
So, we make the arts a priority.
We connect artists, community, and ideas.
We speak to our representatives.
We show up for the arts.
We vote for the arts.
Because where the arts thrive, communities flourish.
I'm an arts voter because I believe that our public institutions and our elected officials should fully support the arts in every community across this country.
I'm an arts voter because the arts are where I found my people.
I'm an arts voter because the arts save lives.
Because the arts help people feel seen.
Because the arts made me the person that I am today.
Because the arts are not an extra, they're essential.
Because the arts are essential.
Nothing more, nothing less. The arts are essential.
The arts are essential.
The arts, they're essential.
The arts are essential.
The arts are essential.
The arts are essential. Full stop.
Who decides the future?
We do.
I am an arts voter.
Please welcome to the stage Americans for the Arts Chief Marketing Officer, Jamie Lundblad.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our final day of AFTACON 2026. Over the past few days, we have explored what it means to shape the future of arts and culture, to organize for impact, and to stay rooted in place. This morning, we turn our attention to one of the most powerful ways we can carry that work forward, civic engagement. At Americans for the Arts, we believe the arts are not separate from public life, they are essential to it. They help define who we are as communities, what we value, and how we imagine our future together. And that's exactly why Arts Vote exists. Arts Vote is our national effort to ensure that arts and culture are part of the civic conversation at every level, in every community, and in every election cycle. It's about equipping this field with the tools, the language, and the collective momentum to show up, be heard, and advocate for the role of the arts in public life. So today, we're excited to share the next chapter of that work. We're introducing the vision for Arts Vote 2026, along with a new brand that reflects both the urgency of this moment and the opportunity ahead. Arts Vote isn't new, but it's expanding, more urgent than ever, and now it's always on. It's an organization-wide priority, and it continues to be powered by artists, previously Shepard Fairey, and now Bob Faust and Nick Cave, and a growing collective of others. Chicago-based artist and creative director Bob Faust has reimagined the visual identity for Arts Vote. His bold graphics will empower advocates, amplify civic participation, and elevate creative voices. Faust is also bringing a powerful addition to the project, his creative collaborator and life partner, the world-renowned artist Nick Cave. We're excited to reveal the new Arts Vote logo today. Bob recently told us a check mark represents a choice, but more importantly, an action. I want to show how easy this lift is so everyone adds their check mark for the arts. He's created a range of logos for different uses, and we even made a template so you, as citizen artists, can create your own. We've got merch coming soon. And also coming soon are a marketing toolkit, more Arts Vote webinars, the next one is June 25th, so please save the date, and a national marketing campaign led by Yossi Sargent of Task Force, who you'll be hearing from very shortly. What I hope you take from today is simple. This is not just a campaign, it's an invitation. An invitation to organize, an invitation to connect across sectors, and an invitation to ensure that the arts are visible, valued, and supported in the decisions that shape our communities. Because the future of arts and culture will not be decided for us, it will be shaped by those who show up. And we know this community knows how to do that, exactly that. To ground us in real-world practice, let's move into our next session, Arts Vote 2026, Organizing in Unexpected Places. This conversation explores how creative organizing shows up in everyday places where trust and culture already exist. I am honored to introduce our moderator, who will then introduce the panel. Yossi Sargent is a cultural strategist and the founder of Task Force, an agency uniting art and social change, best known for commissioning the iconic Hope poster for Barack Obama's first presidential campaign, he continues to lead the field of cultural organizing and strategy. Please welcome Yossi Sargent.
Good morning, everybody. How about that mariachi? I just want to take a second to thank Jamie and to thank AFTA and to thank all the amazing workers of this hotel who have taken such good care of us. And our host city, Albuquerque. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What an amazing city you have here. All right, I'm so excited to introduce you to some amazing humans up here. First up, Jackie. Jackie is a Tejana organizer, a cultural strategist, a community builder with Jolt, Texas, where she works at the intersection of civic engagement, youth leadership, and arts and culture. Her approach blends advocacy, storytelling, and people-powered organizing to inspire and build lasting civic power. Jackie helps connect new generations of Texans to the issues shaping their communities in bold and innovative ways. We're about to hear from Jackie in a minute, but welcome, Jackie. Paola. Paola is an award-winning baker, chef, author, and community advocate whose work blends culinary excellence and deep commitment to social impact. Known nationally for her inventive approach to pastry and storytelling through food, Paola has become a leading voice in the intersection of culture, hospitality, and civic engagement. Through her baking, writing, and advocacy, she uses food as a tool to build community, to celebrate identity, and to inspire meaningful change in communities. Welcome. And last but definitely not least, Idris. Idris is a first-generation Afghan-American, a storyteller, a creative strategist, a nonprofit leader dedicated to empowering young people through media, culture, and civic engagement. As the founder and executive director of an organization that amplifies youth voices and creative expression, he has built platforms that connect storytelling and social impact. Drawing on his own experience as an immigrant and an advocate, Idris works to foster belonging, leadership, and an opportunity for the next generation through the power of narrative and community. All right. Okay, let's get it started. There we go. So I often hear from civics organizations that reaching voters can be difficult, that they aren't interested, that they don't care, that they're overwhelmed with the everyday struggles and the joys of life. They're distracted by digital brain rot, and they're lost in political chaos. That sometimes is true, but more often or not, they're just missing an opportunity. You see, there's no lack of enthusiasm out there. There's simply a lack of quality, culturally sound engagement that y'all do so very well. We fail to give people the kind of invitation to participate that they deserve, to feel excited and welcomed in shaping the outcomes of their own community and in the electoral process. I want to be clear, I'm not discounting the systematic oppressions that isolate some people in our communities and the historical traumas that we all see rearing their heads today. But yet again, we can do better, we must do better, and these people up here are doing a very good job of it. By the way, that last picture was of the drop of a new sneaker at a Nike store. This is by, these shoes are by an artist named Mo Kicks from Wisconsin. Yeah. All right, so let's meet this crew of people who are rewriting the rules here. Let's start with Jackie. Jackie, introduce us to Jolt, but introduce us specifically to Quince the Vote.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie Bastard. I'm the executive director at Jolt. For those of you not familiar with Jolt, Jolt is a Latino civic engagement organization that focuses on young Latinos throughout the state of Texas, 18 to 32 years of age. And we have 3 pillars at the organization where we take the approach of cultural, digital, and art as well. It is very important for us to ensure that we are incorporating culture into our work. And we do this so that we're able to register voters, make sure that they're informed voters, mobilize them to the polls, and of course, advocate for issues that impact the Latino community. We have a program called Poder 15, which has transformed into various sub-programs called 15 to the Capitol or 15 to the polls. Poder 15 focuses on young Latinas in Texas that are turning 15, and for those of you who are not familiar with quinceañeras, a quinceañera is a coming of age in the Latino community for young women, and this signifies a huge milestone in this culture that this young woman is ready to take the next step into womanhood, and that includes duties that will include any familial duties or duties that they will have that are going to impact their community. And what we do is we engage these young Latinas at an early age, and we teach them everything from the culture behind a quinceañera to Latino history, Texas history, civics, and we ensure that they are advocates at an early age and engaging not only their peers, but their families at what we call Poder 15. And these events, to us, it's something that in the Latino culture is like the biggest dinner table in the Latino culture, right? And what better way to have conversations about civic engagement than at that dinner table where it's a multi-generational conversation about what their parents, their grandparents, tíos, tías, primos have gone through. And it's an opportunity to make sure that those are open conversations, because in the Latino culture, there isn't a generations of civic engagement, and it is our job to try to break that cycle and make voting a habit for future generations to come. So we incorporate culture, arts into this initiative to ensure that we are engaging, again, young Latinas early, because, again, they are going to be the matriarchs of the family and making the decisions, but also not only are they making decisions for their families, but for their communities and the impact that they will have for future generations.
Amazing. I'm going to start with a question for Jackie. Jackie, some cultural institutions, none in this room, of course, still treat civics as a program. And many civics organizations still treat art as marketing. How are you different? How are you bringing arts and cultures and civics together inside of your organization?
Yeah, so at Jolt, one of the things that we do is we don't just show up to a community. Yes, we are a Latino civic engagement organization. Yes, majority of our staff are Latinos. But when we're going into a community, we want to talk to the people in that community, because culture is not a campaign for us. It is the foundation for which we are building our work and our democracy as well. So we pay attention to what people have to say in their community, what's important to them, and how we're going to engage them. We take that information back and we create field plans and programming around the issues that are important to these individuals. And we do leadership development trainings. Aside from Poder 15, we also have Arriba las Mujeres, Levántate y Lucha, where we talk about issues that impact them and how they can use what they learn to go and talk to like their city council, their school board, or just have conversations among their community and volunteer. So culture is very essential to the work that we do, and we make sure that we partner with like local artists, musicians, poets, to make sure that we are translating the message in different ways for individuals to understand the civic process. Again, like I mentioned, Latinos don't have generations of civic engagement. And how do I know that? Because I was one of your unengaged voters. I didn't grow up in a household where voter registration or any of that language was part of a conversation. It took until me getting to an organization like Jolt for me to become civically engaged and understand that culture, seeing myself in a process that, you know, historically was meant to keep us out, you know, made me understand that I belonged at the table, that I had a voice and that I can use my voice. And we want to empower young women and young people in Texas to ensure that they understand the power of their voice, the power of their voice at the ballot box, and that it doesn't stop there, right? And so when we use culture and art as a way to connect with the community, they're seeing themselves in that process. They feel a sense of belonging in a civic engagement process, and that will ensure that that creates that future generations of involvement as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your great work. All right, let's move on to Idris. Idris, why is a soccer team on a stage at Americans for the Arts conference?
Well, first of all, I'm humbled and grateful to be here. And I've been learning about everyone's work, and it's really, really remarkable. So congratulations, everyone. My name is Idris. I'm a first-generation African-American, born in Oakland, raised in the Bay Area my whole life. Yes, I got some Bay Area folks in the building. That's what's up. We're definitely different. You'll learn very quickly. And early on in my life, I had an epiphany, and that epiphany was that morality is oftentimes informed by art, design, aesthetics, and architecture. And that philosophy, sport as well, and that philosophy really came to life in 2016, 2017, when our major league teams were departing from Oakland. Billionaire-owned teams extracted from our community. And then when things weren't working out financially for them, they moved to a different community. Those things don't happen globally. If you look at Europe and how teams are built, they're built from common people. They're built from the pubs. They're built from the ground up. And I asked the question, why not professional soccer in Oakland, but with purpose at the forefront of everything we do? So very early on, we created our purpose statement, which is to harness the magic of Oakland and the power of sport as a vehicle for social good, and did not look back ever since. We use design and aesthetics and lifestyle and culture to allow for our brand to exist in the marketplace in a meaningful way. And we allow for the success that we have on game days, the revenue generated, to create programs in our community that last lifetimes and inspire people and bring joy to our community. I'm sure folks from New Mexico know of the team New Mexico United. We actually play, yeah. Shout out New Mexico United. We played New Mexico United at our home opener at the Coliseum and won, but.
You want to get out of here safely, right?
Yeah, and I bring attention to our game day because it really is remarkable. I remember actually talking to Pete, the owner of New Mexico United, and he said it's truly remarkable what we've done culturally at our game days. We hold the record for the highest attendance for a non-major league team in 26,000 last year at our home opener. We maintain, thank you. We maintain the most raised in a community investment round, 3.6 million raised from 6,000 local community investors and global investors, broken American sports history record. And I say these things to say that we've done it with zero paid advertising dollars. So up until, thank you. Up until last year, we had never spent on paid advertising, and it was all word of mouth. It was all about building intentional campaigns, telling stories that people cared about, and leaning into our community in a highly intentional way. The jerseys you see here on the screen are actually the first time a sports team has ever put Black Power marks on a jersey. And it was done in collaboration with the Huey P. Newton Foundation. As you all know, the Black Panther Party was born out of Oakland, and I drew a lot of inspiration from the way in which they held their brand and identity in the community. If you look at the design in the posters, the way that they held themselves, the way that they dressed, those things really impacted the way that people saw them. And I carry that with me in the stuff that we do today. So lots more where that comes from. The images you see here are garments designed by students in Oakland Unified School District, as well as the California College of Arts. We upcycled garments and then had a fashion show at the Coliseum, which marked the first fashion show ever in a pro soccer venue. So again, a lot of this is zagging while everyone else zigs. It's asking the question, why hasn't it been done this way instead of that way? And I heard someone in a prior discussion talk about decision making. So I'm a first generation Oakland born, raised. My wife is from Oakland. My daughter's from Oakland. And I'm a co-founder of the organization. I sit on the board, and I'm an executive within the organization as well. That is how these decisions are upheld, and this is how we're able to make these wild things happen. And you got to be at the table, but more than being at the table, you got to have a plate to eat, and that's the differentiation that I think has allowed us to be successful today.
Really, I think there's one thing that you told me that I want to just point out as well. You have installed an art gallery inside the stadium and plan on expanding it.
Yeah.
And I recently went to not a soccer game, but actually it was a soccer game, and I took out a loan for the parking and for the tickets. What have you done? Can you tell them what you've done with your pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the gallery, we have a rotating gallery. Every game, we pay artists from our community to showcase their work inside of the gallery. And then we digitize the art that they display at the game and create commerce for people in our community to engage and own a piece of that artwork. And so direct benefit to the artists, and we're able to tell their stories as well. This is a gallery concept that I hope to instill in our future stadium. Imagine a stadium where you go and you're able to interact with local artists as a part of the game day experience. Sports is not just sports anymore. You have to think about the human senses and experience as a whole, and that is something that's very important to us. Access and the pricing is also another big thing that we care a lot about. In the Bay Area, there's a lot to compete with. Prices are very, very high. But we're a club for the people, we're a club for the community. And I'll tell you, Yossi, the fact that we have community investment owners means that the minute those prices go up too high, we get thousands of emails. So accountability is there, and I actually think that's a big part of the reason why we move the way we do, is that if we move otherwise, the community will hold us accountable immediately. And that is a big benefit to the community investment model that we have.
A professional soccer team accountable to the community they're playing in is a concept that should be spread everywhere. And then lastly, Idris, you're not off the hook yet. People can smell a campaign disguised as culture from a mile away. You guys have walked that line very well. How?
Wow. I mean, we created the club at the cusp of 3 major teams leaving. And there was a campaign, I don't know if you all recall, called Rooted in Oakland by the so-called Oakland Athletics. And this is an example of a campaign that doesn't build trust, right? Millions spent on trying to get people to believe in an idea, and then it's just pulled away from them. My first sporting experiences were at A's games, as my family as refugees saw game days as a way to come together and experience life. And so early on, I knew that the way to build was to stay very, very close to the streets. And I fundamentally believe that organizations and people that feel disconnected are disconnected because they do not have their ears to the streets in an intentional way. The people that I've built this club with are from our community. our investment group, whether it's G-Eazy or Marshawn Lynch or Billy Joe Armstrong, these folks are high level, but they're also deeply connected to the community and are people I grew up with, the people that I know. And you have to build respect. This is 6 to 7 years of saying yes in our community to finally get to the place that we're at. It's the East Bay Dragons, the bike crew in Deep East Oakland calling me and saying, hey, Dries, we need volunteers to clean up the community on a Sunday. It's recognizing that showing up in those times leads to greater success in the long term. And it's doing that relentlessly and building respect and doing it intentionally, authentically, that I think then allows you to put the crest on a jersey and create dope merchandise that people love and appreciate. So it's the work on the streets.
Amazing. I'll just point out that Idris and his crew and the community that has built this team are doing this without the support of creative and arts money. This is an organic project because it is so clear that you guys believe in culture as a vital part of your community, and it's just much respect.
Thank you.
Last but anything but least, Paola.
Hi.
Hello. You are a James Beard awardee who has a restaurant and I mean, come on. And you have a business that you run, you're a writer, you are, we could say, busy. Yet in your spare time, which I'm sure you have much of, you started Bakers Against Racism. And one of the projects, of the many projects of that project, is Bake the Vote. Can you tell us a little bit about Bake the Vote and how the hell you have time to do it?
I don't have time. I just try to wish for the best, but I also think that you have to meet the call regardless of how busy you are or how tired you are. The next generation of voters depend on us to do this, So it's actually my joy to do so. I find so much fulfillment in trying to motivate people not only to bake, yes, because everybody loves a little sweet, it's something like Kiki Palmer said, this one has a little sweetness to it, But, I truly believe that food holds so much power and it holds so much essence and history, and it's also a form of art. So through it, I feel, at least what I love to say is that you can't really argue back with me if you have a cookie in your mouth, So Bake the Vote was born not because we wanted to, well, I live in DC, so not because we wanted to just do something DC coded, but Bake the Vote was born because after we had, spanned across 4 continents, 200 plus US cities, we were deemed the world's largest bake sale, and we raised millions for social justice causes. I realized that here on our home turf as Americans, we have to meet the call. We have to rise up. We have to be unabashedly unafraid to stand up for what we believe in. That is the American dream. That is what we are doing here in this room. This is what we have to do outside. And the future is the dream. It's no longer a white picket fence. It's just making sure that we have access to our rights. We have access to the beauty of art. We have access to the things that make us feel human and feel whole.
Well, I follow you and now about 1,000 other bakers because of you, so thank you. So my algorithm is awesome. It's delicious, we'll say. All right, I'm gonna take a point of privilege and I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about a project that we run at Task Force. It's called Nail the Vote. We, last cycle, took over 3 nail salons in Atlanta about 3 weeks before the election, and we opened up the salons for free to the community. We invited in stylists and faith leaders, and we worked with the HBCU sororities and said, come on in and get a fresh set. And everybody got to choose what they wanted to get on their nails. There was no mandate. And then we had photographers on site ready to take their pictures, make them look real good for the Instagram. And then they went out into the community and they did what they do. They talked to their friends, their neighbors, their families, and they talked about their nails and were seen and highly visible in their community. And then we went online and we got the top nail artists on TikTok, and we commissioned them to do nails on TikTok, which is apparently a really big. I have less fingernail art on my algorithm, but apparently it's a big deal on the TikToks. And they were pretty amazing and it spread like wildfire. We commissioned, I think, 12 folks to do it, but ultimately we stopped counting at about 120 nail sets that we saw. And then we went one step up and we invited celebrities and known folks to get their nails done. And this is Halsey on the left and Carucci on the right. I don't know if anybody knows who those folks are, but they're the young kids like them. This is Demi Lovato showing people her nails and going to vote early and telling folks to go early. She partnered with another organization. We were not affiliated with the organization. Doesn't matter. The goal that we wanted to put out there was the association with the beauty community and with the culture of folks who are attracted to it. Here's Olivia Munn, Halsey, Kerry Washington. We also had Megan Thee Stallion. All this stuff ends up on social media, and that's kind of the point. And then we worked with an organization, Move On, and we created nail wraps stickers, and we sent these out to 30,000 people across the United States who all did the same. And what does this result in? A boat ton of press, right? So now we have local activation, a digital strategy on top of it, and a media strategy that hovers above, right? This is a full stack cultural project. And the cost? Nominal, right? We are paying nail artists as artists, so it's more than they would make in their day-to-day career. And this still costs, probably about a fifth of a commercial, and not a single penny spent, like Idris, on advertising. All right, so let's put this into context. Let's talk about Art Vote a little bit. We are not that far out from another election. Arts Vote is an amazing project. It's not new. AFTA has been deeply involved in advocacy and getting folks to pay attention to arts and culture as a vital part of our lives and our communities and democracy, and trying to identify and pull together advocates to help protect said arts and culture. But this time we're approaching it a little different. We're gonna build on what was designed with Art Vote, and we're gonna attract people who champion the very power of arts and culture and try to expand democracy itself by a deeper investment in Arts Vote, with new partners like the kind of organizations that you see up here today. They don't know yet that I'm going to drag them into Arts Vote. So welcome to the fun, everybody. You can't back out now. If you found what you saw today at all compelling, whether you're an existing member of Arts Vote or you're new and just hearing about it for the first time, join us. We have really exciting things brewing, and we're going to be in touch shortly to talk about all the interesting ways that you can be showing up in your community using culture at the center of your organizing. To paraphrase Nina Simone, now is the time that artists show up. Our communities need us. So just to leave on a note of culture, here are some other ways that this is all from the last year that our organization task force executed upon bringing creative and culture into community through sports. On the right, you see a Ferris wheel. We worked with the NBA, and we threw concerts at early vote stations We had roller skating rinks and video games and skate parks that were all built on site. The concerts were with Little Baby, Little Yachty, and Benson Boone. Again, my kids know who these people are. I have no idea. We worked with artists and at everything from Dia de los Muertos events, tattoo artists, skateboard artists, potters, and ceramicists. We put together barbershop activations and basketball activations. We worked with indigenous communities, and we worked with artist communities across the nation. This is the work that we're going to get into for AFTACON, for Arts Vote moving forward, and we would absolutely love you to be our partners in the process. Get ready, we're coming for you. You guys have rich communities that you guys are already engaged in, and we would love to be your partners in helping to activate as we head into the next cycle. Thank you, AFTACON. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for the work that you're doing and for inspiring me and everybody here today.
Please welcome to the stage Americans for the Arts VP of Research, Randy Cohen.
Good morning, everyone. One of the things I love most about this conference is our generosity, how we share, support, and learn from one another, whether it's an incredible opportunity or a, oh my God, challenge. Chances are it's either happened to you, it's happening to you, or it's about to happen to you. It's coming, right? The people who help us navigate those moments become some of the most important colleagues and friends that we will ever have. Today, we are recognizing someone who has embodied that spirit for an extraordinary amount of time, Naj Wyckoff. Naj Wyckoff attended his first Americans for the Arts convention in 1976. Back when our nation was celebrating its bicentennial. Remember that? Well, today, as we celebrate America 250, Naj is celebrating 50 years of attending Americans for the Arts conventions. Amazing, right? 50 years of showing up, 50 years of building relationships, 50 years of strengthening this field. Now, if you spent any time with Naj, I've spent a lot, one of the first people I met here, you know he's one of those people who always seems to know someone, always seems to connect a person to another, or have an idea that opens a new door. His generosity and creativity have inspired colleagues literally across generations. Naj, please join us up here on the stage. There he is. All right, yes, good. All right, yeah. No cane required. That's the arts keeping us young. Naj, it is my honor to present you with the Pillar of the Arts Award in recognition of 5 decades of participation in Americans for the Arts annual conventions. For 50 years, you have helped build the social and civic infrastructure that allows arts and culture to thrive nationwide. We honor your enduring leadership, your remarkable commitment, and the example you have set for all of us. Let's give it up for Naj. Step over here for a picture. Come on over here, to your left. Thank you, everybody.
welcome to the stage CEO of Americans for the Arts, Aaron Harkey.
So we're coming to the end. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Naj. It's so good to see you. So today has been such a powerful reminder that civic engagement does not only happen in formal spaces. It happens in the places people already gather, already trust, and already express who they are. And that is exactly the spirit behind Arts Vote, meeting people where they are and building from there. As we think about the work ahead, I also want to take a moment to share a bit about how Americans for the Arts is strengthening our own capacity to support this work. I want to recognize our connection to the Arts Action Fund, which is our C4, and Nina and Morgan, who lead that work for us. And that organization is continuing to play a vital role in advancing pro-arts policy and ensuring that our sector has a strong, coordinated voice in the civic arena. The Arts Action Fund and Arts Vote are deeply connected to purpose. Together, they help build the civic infrastructure necessary to support long-term arts advocacy and public engagement, not just during election cycles, but year-round. This work includes educating voters, mobilizing advocates, building bipartisan relationships, and helping communities understand the role that arts and culture play in civic life. Together, this ecosystem of advocacy, organizing, and public engagement is what allows us to move from ideas into impact. And as we begin to close our time together, I want to reflect for a moment on what we have experienced over the past few days. We have been in rooms where big questions were asked and not always easily answered. We saw that earlier today. We have seen what it looks like to challenge assumptions, share knowledge openly, and build connections across roles, disciplines, and geographies. We have also stepped outside of our conference rooms and into community, into neighborhoods, cultural spaces, and creative environments that remind us this work is always grounded in place. Here in New Mexico, we have experienced a living example of how arts and culture are embedded in daily life, how they carry history, shape identity, and create pathways for connection and resilience. And through it all, one thing has been clear: this field is not standing still. It is evolving, it is organizing, and it is full of people who are ready to do the work of shaping what comes next. Before we close, I want to take a moment to recognize the many people who have made this gathering possible, echoing Yossi's sentiments about the sort of labor that has cared for us and fed us throughout this entire conference. Super grateful to all of you. Can we give them a round of applause? Also, just a last thank you to, and a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors. Thank you for your investment in this community and the future of the arts. To our local host committee, that was such an informative conversation earlier today, and I'm really excited about the work ahead. Your partnership has ensured that this convening is deeply rooted in Albuquerque and reflected of this place in meaningful ways. And to our Pathway Committee members, thank you for the care, expertise, and thoughtfulness you brought to shaping the content and experience that defined this week. And now I get to thank my staff. Will you guys stand up, please, or come to the front, or do whatever you can? Yay! Come to the front. So this gathering is the result of months of planning, collaboration, and dedication, and your work behind the scenes and on the ground made this experience seamless and thoughtful and impactful. And I also want to recognize our partners at Looking Glass Creative. They have been behind the scenes of all of this magic. If you're looking for somebody to help plan your conference, please connect with them. And to our board of directors, again, thank you for your leadership, your guidance, and your belief in the importance of this work. And finally, and most importantly, thank you to all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause. For showing up, for engaging fully, for bringing your perspectives, your questions, and your commitment to this space. This is not the end of the work, it is a continuation, and what happens next will be shaped by what each of you carries forward in your communities. And now we have one last final announcement. We are thrilled to announce where we will be gathering this time next year. So let's cue the video.
And the queens of the world, call everybody, spread the word. No, we're never gonna stop.
Atlanta is a city built on creativity, culture, innovation, and community. We're proud to welcome AFTACON 2027 and the leaders shaping the future of arts and culture across the country. Here in Atlanta, the arts show up everywhere, along our Beltline, in our neighborhoods, in our theaters, museums, studios, and public spaces. The arts connect our neighborhoods, boost our economy, and define how we grow together as a city. AFTACON, we'll see you in 2027, and we can't wait to welcome you to Atlanta, the city that influences everything.
So we're so excited to be heading to Atlanta for AFTACON 2027. That video just offered a glimpse of what's ahead, but there's one thing that we know. Atlanta is a city where arts, culture, and community are deeply intertwined, and we cannot wait to connect with the incredible creative community there, the civil rights history, the rich legacy of HBCUs, the extraordinary cultural institutions, and the city's dynamic film and music industries. And I'll just say this now, there's going to be a lot of T.I. and Outkast in the playlist next year, so get ready. This is just the beginning, and the months ahead there will be many ways to get involved, whether that is helping to shape content, sharing your work, as we build another meaningful and inspiring convening, so stay tuned. We want you to be a part of what comes next. And part of that is hearing from you about what worked and what you want to see different in 2027. So after this, we'll be sending each of you a survey that is personalized to the sessions you attended. It should take less than 10 minutes, and it's incredibly important in how we plan for the future, so we really appreciate your feedback. We all know how important data is, right? As we wrap up our time together here in Albuquerque, I want to offer one more heartfelt thank you to the city of Albuquerque, to the state of New Mexico, and the incredible artists, partners, and communities who welcome us so generously. Thank you for sharing this place with us and for grounding this experience in something so real and meaningful. AFTACON 2026 made possible through the support of our sponsors, the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs, local hosts, City of Albuquerque Cultural Planning Department, City of Albuquerque Department of Arts and Culture, Cultural Planning Group, Knight Foundation, Lord Cultural Resources, National Arts Strategies, New Mexico Arts, and your part-time controller, the Americans for the Arts Foundation, and the William Lair Professional Development Fund, with additional support provided by New Mexico Rail Runner Express and Visit Albuquerque. That was a lot of folks. And thanks again. It was really lovely to be here with you. Safe travels home.